Right, apologies for that. We just had a couple of Google slide PowerPoint issues. Windows talking to Apple, Apple talking to Windows, but I believe we've sorted it now, right? We're good, right, brilliant, fantastic. So welcome again to another packed Federation House, Northcoders HQ, ready for 3 brilliant presentations. I've not seen any of your presentations, so I'm in the same boat as you lot. Hello to our internet viewers. If you're wondering why I'm talking to a mic, it's because we are live on the internet, and anyone viewing on the internet will be able to have the opportunity to ask questions for each of our teams in the box below during the presentations. And I'm now going to shut up because you've waited for far too long. And we're going to start today's proceedings with the team Mapture.
Hello, I'm April. We're Team Clump, and our project Mapture is a location-based video messaging Android app, a bit like if Pokemon Go and Snapchat had a baby. The idea is that a user can take a video and then place it at the current location for someone else to find in the future. Then if the other user goes within 75 meters of where the video was dropped, they're able to watch it. Our inspiration was the idea of a hidden gem, something left for you to find that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. I'm going to pass you to Sam, who's going to tell you about our app and show you a video of it in action.
Hi, I'm Sam, as April said, and I'm going to give you a tour of our lovely app. So, video 1, we open the map, and we don't have an account yet, so we go to the sign up, fill in all our details. User 1's a pretty slow typer, unfortunately, so we'll have to wait around a little bit, but it'll be worth it, I promise. Come on, Hugh, come on, you can do it. Oh, great password, I love it. Cool, so on register, you're logged in instantly, and you're brought to the main feature of our application, which is a dynamic and interactive map. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. If you see, there's gems all over the world, i.e. in England and France. You can't click on anything outside of your current location, so user 1 goes straight ahead and records a little video and posts it in his current location, which just so happens to be in the cafe downstairs. And then you post the video and log out. And user 2's phone looks conspicuously like user 1's phone, but it's okay. User 2 already has an account, so they just log in straight away. Bit of a quicker typer, which is good. User 2 logs in and is pleased to see that there's a gem in their favorite coffee shop. So they zoom in, view the gem, and is so convinced by the thumbs up approval that they decide to post their own video in response. In fact, they're so convinced by the quality of the cake that user 1 has been approved of, or is approving of, that they decide to open the menu, open the friends list, and send a friend request to user 1. User 2 will log out and eagerly await the response from user 1. User 1 logs in again. Come on, he's nearly there. Come on, you can do it, Hugh. Once they're finally logged in, they navigate to the friends view. See that there's a request from user 2, and they accept the request. Then they navigate to the private view, which is distinct from the public view, and decide to post a gem specifically for user 1 to see. User 2 So this video will be awaiting user 1 when they log back in. And both log out and feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I'm going to pass you over to Tommy now, who's going to cover our tech stack.
Thanks, Sam. So, okay. Oh. Yeah. So, pretty early on when deciding what app we wanted to make, we all liked the idea of making an Android app because we've all got Android phones and we can use features like the GPS and the camera. So from this, our main two options were either Java or Kotlin, so we researched both of them. And then Kotlin is a new upcoming language. It's based on Java, but it's getting a lot of attention recently because it's got a shorter syntax. It's being used by companies such as Pinterest, Basecamp, and Trello. And it solves a lot of the pitfalls of Java because it avoids all the null errors, which are terrifying, and just you can't understand. So we decided we went with that. And also we were like recommended it by Ant. Yeah, we made the app in Android Studio, which by default runs in Kotlin now, so that made even more sense. And yeah, a lot of the settings were pretty easy to get up and running. And also the layout you can design similar to PowerPoint. For the back end, we used Firebase, and it came with good documentation online, and also it implemented well with Kotlin for storing all the markers and videos. And then it has built-in authentication for all the users, and it's pretty scalable if we want to increase the size. And yeah, overall, all of this was new to us 2 weeks ago, but it felt worth it learning it, and object-oriented languages are very hard when starting, but I'll pass you over to Joe.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to talk about software engineering practices, because we're not just learning how to program, we're also learning the practices and processes to enable us to become software developers. We will pair programming from day one of the course, and this continued into project phase. We've really started seeing the benefits of this. We're able to catch each other's syntax errors, teach each other, and generally have more fun. On some occasions, we took this one step further with mob programming, in particular in the first couple of days where we were learning Kotlin. It helped to go through the basics together so that we could move on to our individual tasks with more focus. Because we used an agile-inspired methodology, we used a Kanban board to manage our workload and utilize daily stand-ups. We made sure to keep these brief, on topic, and always answering the same questions. Each person would say what they did yesterday, what they were doing today, and what issues they were facing. This was particularly helpful for our group, because when we took work home, learned something new, or made some adjustments, we needed to feed these back to the group. We also always considered the app as a potential product. How suitable it is for its purpose, its reliability, and its performance were regularly discussed. We made sure to consider the potential markets and shared the app with friends as a kind of mock user testing to see what they thought of the idea and invited feedback to help us make the app more user-friendly, fun, and ultimately something they would want to use. And to Johnny.
So, hi guys, I'm going to talk about the challenges that we face and how we overcame them. So taking on a project to this demand, it was always going to bring some challenges with it, and it's something that definitely tested us as a team. We knew that our worst enemy in this was time, and pressure was on, so it was vital that we kept the team focused strong and worked well as a unit. The coding as a team was not an issue, as we had plenty of practice during the course in pairs and mobs. The greater challenge came with decision making and planning. We all remained as diplomatic as possible during team discussions and stand-ups with the ideas we put forward, and took votes if there were any split decisions. Version control, GitHub as a group. This is definitely a learning curve. We had a couple of teething problems early on, as you can imagine. We'd only use GitHub in pairs or solo during the course, so our first merges were something from a programmer's nightmare. But a couple of repos later, we were up and running, breaking into branches for relevant activities, and just took extra caution with pushes and merge conflicts. An unexpected challenge that became more apparent early on was hardware. Running Android Studio, especially with virtual phone, is extremely taxing on memory. So 3 out of the 5 of us actually experienced issues with this. Tommy's was the worst. I think his laptop is still trying to open Slack from day 2, to be honest. So, luckily, Northcoders team came to our saviour. They were able to lend us a spare Mac, so thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, Tommy, you do have to give it back. The most difficult challenge, as you can probably imagine, was learning Kotlin. So, as Tommy said, everything that we did in our tech stack was brand new to us, so we knew it wasn't going to be an easy ride. Kotlin, undoubtedly the hardest one of these to conquer, as not only were we adapting to an OOP with strict syntax, but many people say that you should ideally know Java or other OOPs before writing in Kotlin, as Kotlin hides some of the boilerplate code under the hood, and it's important to understand what this code is doing. Well, we didn't know Java, or any other OOPs for that matter, but that didn't stop us. We still gave it a go. We didn't let it put us off. We began by splitting up the areas that we needed to research. Some people looked into Android Studio and getting started there. Some did basic Kotlin tutorials online, and some of us looked into the back-end Firebase and how to hook that in with the app. Then we came back together and did some spiking to see how the app would be built. We did question our choice at times. We knew it wasn't going to be that it was going to be a mountain to climb, but we persevered. And after a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and even more coffee, we were able to deliver Mapture as you see it today. So thank you very much for listening, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Wow. Woo! So brave enough to take on Kotlin, and you won. Well done. That is so cutting edge, and yeah, so many really great organisations are using Kotlin now, and the fact you've been able to do that in 2 weeks is real great props. Right, hands up. Who's got a question? Come on. Aha, thank you.
How was like the documentation and stuff for like learning Kotlin? Was it like helpful since it's like a new language? Did it like have a lot of guides?
It's really good actually, but we did find that a lot of it was in Java as well. So we did spend a lot of time learning Java to learn Kotlin. So we're having to do some translation, especially April. She did some great work with translating the Java into Kotlin so we could then use the Kotlin instead. So we actually benefited from learning both languages in a way as well. So really good. Anyone want to add?
I'll just add to that the kind of issue with it being a new language was that lots of things we were looking at and finding, oh yeah, this is exactly how to do this thing, but it was outdated or it changed since then. So we had a bit of trouble with like passcode not working and realizing that we needed to update it, but once we figured that out, it was okay. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Cool, thank you. Right, who's next? Hi.
Hi, really well done. Would you use Kotlin again, and why, if you would?
Yeah, I think first time you use a language is always going to be the hardest. I would try and use it again, for sure. Hopefully have a better understanding this time. But I think if I was going to do an Android app, then yeah, I'd probably go for Kotlin over Java, to be honest.
Excellent. Come on, YouTubers. Put a question in the box. Right, whilst we're waiting for them to do that, let's have one from down here. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Hi. How easy was it to sort of settle on an idea?
It was quite difficult. This idea is actually a version of an earlier idea we had. We were going to leave reviews in places called hidden gems and then pick up those places. We also had completely different ideas, and it was more about, once we decided we wanted to learn Kotlin, this seemed like the sensible choice.
I guess even before the idea of hidden gems, we also had an assassin game with geolocation, and we also had some like travel app as well. So it took us almost half a week to finally decide on one idea. So definitely really hard. Yeah.
I think part of it was learning how to be collaborative. I think we had to all learn, like, when we're all pretty collaborative people, but when 5 people are coming together and they have, we've been thinking about this for, months, maybe even before we started the course, to get all those ideas in sync and learn how to, not have a particular feature that you were really interested in because the group majority says, it's not going to work, then, yeah, we just learned a lot of collaboration, like, really quickly, I think, which is good.
Thank you. If I could get you to move into picture, that would be great. Further. Great. YouTube has woken up. We've got 3 questions. We'll start with Paul Tyson from The Idol. If you were starting again, would there be anything you would have done differently?
I think time would have been lovely. So if we were starting again, I would take a lot more time to really understand the fundamentals of the language we were working with. We spent a lot of time spiking, and basically the spike turned into the app. So that's what you saw today, was basically us spiking and just continuing to develop what we started. So time is a beautiful thing with coding, and if we'd had that, then I think we would have perhaps been able to add more features that we were looking to add. So we had the idea of like bringing in a tourism feature, so you could drop videos around a city, and that would basically be location-based tour guide, so you could follow the videos to pick up information on a guide for a tour. So time again would have allowed us to try and implement things like that. So
Okay, probably got time for one more, and we'll leave the final word to Sam. What was the hardest part of transitioning to an OOP language?
I think we're all scared of answering that one.
The types, definitely. So there was a point where we were trying to get the friend list to appear, and we were taking it from Firebase and trying to turn it into an array or an array-like thing, but because you have to define, there's an array, there's mutable array, there's a list, there's loads of different things. And also, the derivatives of those are what's inside of them as well. So it just gets really complicated, and there's a whole host of functions specifically related to those types. So learning how to be quite strict with what we were doing and deal with a bit of frustration, yeah, I think that was the main thing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well done for being so brave. One final round of applause for Mapcha! We'll be back in a very short moment with the next team. Welcome back, everyone. It is now, gives me great pleasure to hand you over to Safe Space.
Welcome to Safe Space. I'm Andrew, and together I'm with my colleagues Alex, Tom, and Russ. Safe Space is a smart home monitoring device app. We built our hardware device. This is a Raspberry Pi over here in its 3D printer orange casing. So we built that, and together it's got a camera sensor, and it's also got a BME 680 environmental sensor as well. We built push notifications into our app. So the video here is just starting up. We've got, not entirely synchronized together, but we've got our iOS app on the left, and we've got our Android app on the right. We built in push notifications for the environmental sensors, so that included air quality, included air pressure, temperature, and humidity. We also had a push notification that could be sent to the user to when motion was being detected, which we built into our device. On logging in, you get to a home screen. This is the videos screen. So this is back at the home screen where you can choose to live stream a video. So there you can see a tram coming down from Shude Hill. And then you can go close the live stream to take you back to the home page. We've got the videos, which includes a list of videos which have been recorded over the past time that have been kept, and they're recorded when the device has detected motion sensors. I'll go back to that. Here's the settings screen with the air quality, the temperature, the air pressure, and the humidity. And then we get taken, on clicking on one of those buttons, you get taken to a graph. But there you are, which includes all the daily readings. So it takes an average over the day and has a daily reading of the graph until the current day in the month. And then finally, we go to the settings screen, which has arming and disarming the device. So you can choose from the app whether to switch off or switch on the device as appropriate. And then you can change your password and you can log out. Going back to the videos, which I slightly missed, you can go into a video, you can play it back, you can jump to whatever point you want in the video to replay it as many times as you want, and you can also delete the video if you've had enough of it to clear the database. Right, I'll now hand over to Alex, who will discuss the tech stack. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Quiet, okay. Right, so this is a sort of overview of our tech stack. It's a little bit different to normal because we've got sort of 3 different areas that we have to focus on. On the left, as you can see, we've got our device, which is actually a Raspberry Pi, running Python, Flask with a Bosch sensor on it. In the middle, we've got the back end where we're using Firebase, using their real-time database and their cloud storage. And also on the front end, we've got React Native, JavaScript, and Expo. The way that this all interacts together is the user will log on to the front end using React Native, and that talks indirectly to the Raspberry Pi through Firebase. The only time this changes is when we do the live stream, and then the phone actually connects directly to the Raspberry Pi, and then streams video from one to the other. So next I'll move on to our device. So the device that we've got is a Raspberry Pi 3 B+. Didn't cost us much money, but we thought this would be the best idea. It'd probably overkill if you were just doing this to sell for production, but it's what we could get. On here we're running Python. Now at first we started out and we thought like working with JavaScript, it's what we've done on a course, it's what we know. But when we were sort of doing our research, we were looking to do motion detection with the camera, a lot of the stuff that was written for it was already written in Python, all the documentation's done in Python. So we sort of came together and made a decision and thought, I know, let's learn Python. It was quite a challenge, but I think we all really enjoyed it, and that worked out really well. It was really quick, and everything worked seamlessly. We also use Flask, so Flask is sort of similar to Express, which I know everyone on the course will have been using. Like in back-end, we set up a little server for our live stream. It was syntactically brilliant, like it was really intuitive. We knew what we were doing straight away, and that wasn't too much of an issue. Packages we used Motion, which is a motion detection package, again, all in Python, which sort of like twisted our arm into that kind of thing. And then finally, we did some 3D printing with the help of my dad. As you can see, it's not very conspicuous, it's bright orange. And one little issue we had is that we accidentally 3D printed over the power supply, so we couldn't actually plug it in and use it. But I'll blame that on my dad, I know he's watching, so there we go. And then, yeah, I'm going to hand over to Tom, and Tom's going to talk about the front end and the back end.
For the back end, originally we considered not having a back end at all because we have a device and we thought maybe we can just store it all on there, which sounded great until you consider that if something like a cat knocks over the device or someone steals it, then you have no back end, so your device doesn't work, it has nothing to connect to anymore. So we eventually settled on using like an actual backend instead. Originally, we considered using a more traditional backend, like Express with Node.js or Python with Flask, like we did on the device. But there was a lot of problems with storing videos and authentication. And in the end, we decided to go with Firebase because it does all these things for you. It saves you so much time in trying to sort all those things out. We had 3 parts to our device, so we decided that it's a better option just to make that a bit easier for us. The other advantage of Firebase is that it has real-time components to it. For when you saw on the video earlier, you can just turn the device on and off remotely. It makes that sort of thing a lot easier. It does that within like less than a second, tells the device that you've switched it off. Okay, moving on to the front end. All right, so the main product here is the device. So we thought if you're going to sell this device and someone wants to buy it, and then they found out that, well, it only works on Android or only works on iOS, that's a bit of a problem. So we've pretty much from the start decided that it needs to work on both. We considered using Flutter or Dart for this as a more tough alternative, but we decided that learning 2 languages in 2 weeks and building 2 different things out of them might be a little too much for us. So we were left with the obvious choice, leading on from doing React from the course, which is React Native. We thought, yeah, that can't be that bad, right? We've done React. You look at it, and it looks pretty similar. Looks kind of the same shape. But yeah, after a few days, we found it wasn't quite so similar in a lot of ways. And to talk more about that, I'm going to hand over to Russ and talk about how we worked as a team.
Hey guys. So we followed an agile inspired workflow as well. We kicked off the project, we defined our user stories, we put together a Kanban board, all our tickets, what we needed to do. And then we, every day we'd have a daily stand-up. What we finished on yesterday, what the problems and tasks were for today. If there was a big problem, we sort of mobbed together for the first half a day, solved that. Otherwise, we just paired up and worked through those tickets. And for GitHub, we ended up with 2 repositories because we had 2 very distinct code bases, the hardware device and the front end. We wanted to keep those separate. Don't worry about conflicts. Don't worry about mixing things up. Just keep it simple. And yeah, functional testing on devices and connecting with the hardware. But I'll talk about what went wrong and how we overcame it. And the biggest issue we had, or have, is cross-platform inconsistencies. Like, me and Alex would make some cool buttons for the iPhone, think we're done, hand it over to these guys, and they'd go, oh, this is rubbish. Or they'd make a really cool web player for the videos, and we'd look at it and go, there's no video. We couldn't solve all the issues we had with cross-platform. But I think we got it pretty good in the end. And the other challenges, yeah, I thought we were pretty ambitious with what we wanted to do. Hardware, motion detection, native apps for both devices. And yeah, Git merge conflicts. I was pretty scared about that going in. We'd never worked as a group with GitHub before, so I was a bit worried. But we overcame it. If you move to the next slide, we'll talk about it. So yeah, thanks, Alex. We were worried about the new languages and new technologies, but we sort of took what we knew, the patterns, the concepts, and just dived straight in. Applied it to Python and Firebase and motion detection, and we battled it out, but we got there in the end, and it was good. I felt really comfortable by the end of the 2 weeks. Motion detection was one I was really worried about. I heard a lot of horror stories, but the Python ecosystem and the Raspberry Pi ecosystem, there's a lot of people that have solved these problems before, so we just followed their lead and worked it out. It was good. And GitHub conflict resolution. The first time we tried to merge, it was no. But GitHub's really good. We followed that, read the messages, worked out what the conflicts were, rolled back, solved the conflicts, committed. And by the end of the first week, we had a flow that worked. Like, we stopped working on the same components at the same time. We talked better about what we were doing. It was good. Right, what we do differently. Yeah, cross-platform stuff. I'd want to, if I did it again, we'd do it with both apps open at the same time, develop them parallel so you know exactly what it looks like, or just do iPhone. And spend more time on planning. Like, the architecture could have been, if we had more time, we could have made a lot better app. And if we weren't redoing it but just had another week, we started looking at Bluetooth configuration, so you could connect to the device before it's on your network and configure it. We looked at doing location awareness features that I was saying Tom was really interested in. And I'd love to connect a microphone and a speaker so you could have two-way communication, and just there's loads of features we could have added if we had time. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Any questions?
All right, you're just trying to show off now. We've got Raspberry Pi, we've got Python, we've got Flask, we've got React Native. Amazing. Well done. So, yes, come on, questions. Up here. Hi. I'm sorry, I don't know your name yet.
Hi. So my question is, like, there's a lot of smart devices available at the moment, and obviously they connect to a lot of devices and they're a lot of networks. Are there any sort of security measures that you would have implemented or already implemented into that particular one?
Yeah, so like security was like a really big thing when we were making this project, and it's something we discussed over and over again. Part of the reason why we went with Firebase, because of their authentication system. What we do have in sort of what we built into it, when you sign up, each device has a unique key. You only find that out when you have the device, and you can only access the videos and the content and anything else if you have that key when you sign up. And that's sort of one of the workarounds, or not a workaround, one of the solutions that we came up to an issue. Yeah, by doing it that way. We also link it to the user, and it's all connected. You cannot access videos unless you are that person.
Yeah, I really liked Firebase storage because you could apply rules based on like the user ID, or it was really good for defining security rules for that sort of thing.
Cool, great. Hope that answers your question. Anyone else in the room? Give YouTube a moment to catch up. up here. Got a lot of names to learn.
What things did you prefer using Python over JavaScript?
Python over JavaScript. For this project, access to libraries for the hardware. I think if we had to control the camera or do motion detection in JavaScript, it would have taken us a lot longer. I think we would have solved it, but it would have been tougher. Otherwise, I think they're pretty similar languages. If you can pick up one, I think you can pick up the other pretty well. Anyone add anything?
Yeah. I think Python's good because you've got the indenting, so there's no sort of parentheses, but when you've got the sort of indenting, personally I find it's quite easy to follow the code a bit more easy than the curly boys with JavaScript. So coming from a C++ background, that for me I found was really nice that everything matched up with code, because I personally think neat coding, you've always got more sort of control over what's going on, and if you get any bugs you can easily debug a lot quicker.
Right, can we actually pick up the object and take the camera over there and just get a little close up, because it's pretty. Yeah, that one. Literally amazing. We've never had anything like that before, and we want to show it off, not just have it at the end of a desk. Right. Hopefully that's given you. Right, David from Leeds. Hi, David from Leeds. How did you validate the accuracy of the hardware?
The accuracy of the hardware. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Motion detection was a bit tough to work out if it was triggering because of motion or if it was just triggering for fun. Sorry, you're probably talking about the sensors. Yeah, the sensors on the device definitely need calibration. I think it's a. So what? All right, yeah. Actually, if it was on, we could show you. If you stick some solvents next to it, it instantly drops the air quality measurements. So it's definitely measuring, but it could be calibrated for a real world usage.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, like when we got the software and we were running it, there's like a burn-in time on everything. So as long as you leave that and you don't start taking those readings, so for the end users, there's a bit of a delay, but it makes it more accurate to in the first place, because once that burn-in time's done, it's usually calibrated, but we've noticed certain things like air pressure running a little bit too low and stuff like that. So
we soldered on the BME 680 environmental sensor right behind the back of a CPU, which maybe in hindsight wasn't quite the best thing, because you might have noticed on our presentation our temperature readings were around about 30 degrees, and I can assure you if I'd been working in a room of 30 degrees I probably would have passed out long before.
A bit like this room.
Like now. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, one final question from the room. Come on, let's have some hands up. Hi.
Had any of you worked with Raspberry Pis or done any hobby stuff with them before, or was it all brand new?
I don't think any of us really had. I don't really know. I think just Russ just was like, I want to do something with hardware, and we're like, okay. Like that was about it. Like that was the most. That's how the idea came to fruition. There was no sort of we didn't sit down and go, oh, can we try a Raspberry Pi and do this with it and do that with it? We would sat around the corner in the cafe, and we just and Russ just went, let's do something with hardware, and we went, yeah, okay. And that's where it came from. Like, none of us have any experience with that. Python, well, yeah, nothing like that. The closest I've been to it is, again, at home, just watching my dad programming like Arduinos and stuff like that. I've never done it myself, so yeah, it was really interesting learning curve, at least for me. I don't know what it was like for everyone else, but yeah.
Sure, super interesting. Especially just how similar the Python was to JavaScript. It made me feel like learning other languages is not that, because in the course you only do JavaScript, and you're like, oh, I'm only going to be able to do JavaScript after this course, because I'm never going to get that same experience with other languages. But after learning JavaScript, it was so transferable to Python, and I imagine it's going to be the same to other languages, and that was like a really nice thing to find out, that it's not just JavaScript I've learned, it's how to code anything.
And I think that is, in a nutshell, what Northcoders is about. You can just decide to do something in a cafe and you can basically program and anything. Let's have one more final round of applause for Safe Space. Welcome back, everyone, for the finale of the evening, afternoon. Team Alpha with their app called Plunder.
Hi guys, yeah, we are Team Alpha. I'm Rob, this is Natalia, Sam, Kyle and Tony. Together we made a progressive web app, which is an interactive treasure hunt game. We've got a video, which is a little bit choppy, so you might have to bear with us. The premise of the game is that someone can go and they can leave clues, any number of levels, and in a couple of different ways. This is us walking around Manchester yesterday, searching for graffiti. So yeah, as a creator of a game, you can leave any number of levels. There is, you can answer by text, by image classification, or by GPS. So at the start of the game, you would send someone to a GPS coordinates. You have to be there to start the game. So there's also GPS coordinates. There's image classification as well. So you'll see Sam here taking pictures of some bees. And he gets the picture right. So you then get a bit of information about this mural in particular, and some clues to the next level of the game. When you get to the end of the levels, you can also put your name in a leaderboard. Each game has a separate leaderboard. In a kind of arcade style, you can just stick whatever username in you want. This one was done yesterday. Just there's lots of graffiti around Manchester, so it's a good excuse to use as a game. You can also use it as an educational tool or as a marketing tool. We built it as a progressive web app, and we built it in Python and React. And Natalia here is going to tell you a bit more about the front end.
Thank you, Rob. Good afternoon. We want to show you as well that it can be displayed in desktop. We have several languages. In this one you can see Spanish, and we can create our own game. For the front end, we have used, as Rob said, we wanted to do a PWA progressive web app application, basically because we wanted to have the advantage of the native mobile phone feature users. Phone. For example, for the GPS, it was helpful. And at the beginning, we wanted to do like a React Native app, but it didn't help with all this what we wanted to do. So React was the perfect one to do it, as we wanted a more lightweight app, and we also wanted to have the capabilities of offline game, like play the game without needed of any internet and just for the images, and basically that. So that was all what we needed. For the different languages, we have used i18 Next, which it was the nicest one we could think of in order to translate the app. The only thing we can suggest you is if in the future you want to translate a website or an app, please think in advance, because we made a bit of mess when we want to try to do all the components in the meantime after we have started to code, and please mind that. And for the styling, we wanted to have like a professional styling, so we used the Material UI, which after that we became a bit excited with the pirate theme, so we touched it a bit, which was good as well because we learned more about Material UI and how we could customize it. Everything was fine and a great experience. And basically Material UI has helped us to keep the structure of the app. And I'm gonna pass you to Sam, which is gonna go deeper to another aspects of frontend. Thank you.
So we had quite a large task at the beginning of learning all this new technology. At the beginning, we had like no idea how to use it, and even 100% sure what PWA was. So we started with the back end so we could send the information over first, and just built up a prototype no matter what it was. And we were having a bit of trouble with Axios requests and stuff on the front end at the start, so we ended up finding this Felix, like a library to help us with it. So that helped like cache data locally on the user's phone, so we could send like an object of information over to the user. So then after that, we started with small prototypes with just like text and stuff to just help the user match between text and stuff. And we ended up changing that technology to GPS, and that transferred over pretty easily. So we moved on to image recognition offline, which was quite a challenge for us to do. It was just the quality just wasn't good enough for us to do it offline. So we ended up making a call and switching over to Google's Vision API, which documentation was really good, and it was well easy to implement into our app. And the classification data that we got back was just so much more detailed. So, but since it was like new technology and we weren't 100% sure whether we were getting false positives or anything, we decided to do it in a full TDD. So we did use Cypress for that, which we'd already covered briefly over the course, which we found quite comfortable. It allowed us to write tests quickly, and we could have a lot more precise information that allowed us to find out what was working and what wasn't working, and which helped us like just work a lot faster and get rid of a lot of errors. So I'll hand you over to Tony now. Tell us about backend.
Once we'd come up with the initial idea for the app, we knew that the data structures we were going to need for the levels and the actual game in general was going to be more complicated than anything we'd used before. So we looked into NoSQL databases. We found they're better suited for this type of app because there's less constraints on the actual fields and things that you need to use. It was sort of new technology for us as well, so it was something interesting for us to learn essentially, and it allowed us to have a faster development cycle because later on when we were developing the app, we needed to change the structure of the game data, and we could just run into the database and sort of change it, no problems. So we ended up going with MongoDB because it was sort of the clear winner. It was the most popular one. No barrier to entry, super simple to understand, and tons of documentation. We needed a sort of provider for that as well. We started with AWS, but the problem is it's a bit much for what we needed. So we found a simpler solution in MongoDB Atlas. You just host your database and you have access to it, and that's essentially it. Once we'd figured out the database situation, we had to sort of decide on what kind of API we wanted to build. So we all wanted to learn Python, essentially. So we ended up going with Python and building our API that way, mainly because it was a popular language. We all wanted to learn it, and that's essentially it. But there's two sort of frameworks that you can use for APIs with Python. One of them is Flask, and one of them is Django. Django is a bit more all-encompassing, so we decided to sort of veer away from that so we would get some actual practice coding in Python, and so we went with the other one, which is Flask. It's just sort of a micro framework, super simple, and we were able to boil our API down to one file, essentially one Python file, and we imported a few packages, PyMongo, to interface with the database, and we tested the whole thing with PyTest and PyAssert, which made it all quite fast. I'll pass you over to Kyle.
So at the start of the project, we're given a pretty daunting challenge to create a brand new app in just 9 days using new technologies that we'd never used before. We're all really new to coding, and we all come from non-tech backgrounds. Just 3 months ago, Rob was a plumber, and if you don't believe me, you can check his key ring. He has a bleed key on his key ring, just in case he sees a radiator that really needs bleeding. It was a real challenge, but in the end, we're all really proud of what we're able to accomplish. So the first challenge that we encountered was, where do we begin? We had several ideas that we really liked, but we're very conscious of the limited amount of time we had. So we set ourselves realistic goals but still challenging ourselves, and I think we struck a pretty nice balance. So this was our first experience working in a larger group. Up until now, we'd only done pair programming, and communication becomes even more important in a larger group, especially when you've got several team members working on different components simultaneously. We used agile practices and had daily stand-ups to make sure that we're all on the same page. We kept track of all this with our trusty Kanban board. We don't have a slide for that. We did have a slide for the Kanban board. It's beautiful. Natalia was in charge of the Kanban board, and she would shout at us if we made a mess of it. In spite of this, we did occasionally run into issues with version control and merging branches on GitHub. It can be really frustrating, especially when you get to the end of the day and you've got a conflict merging error to resolve, and you just want to go home. But with practice and good communication, it does get easier. We had the opportunity to work with a lot of interesting new technologies that we never used before. We got to learn a new language. We got to experiment with image recognition and GPS. And we created a multilingual game, which you can download and play offline. And it's been a really challenging experience, but it's also been really rewarding. We hope you all enjoy Plunder. Thanks for listening. Are there any questions?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think all three teams have done us incredibly proud. Let's get those hands in the air and ask some questions. Over here, all the way back.
Congrats, it seems really cool. I really want to play it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So, you said it was a completely new tech stack. Of all the things that you had to learn, which was the biggest learning curve and how did you overcome that?
I think Python was probably the hardest for us to learn at the beginning because we just had to learn that at the beginning, otherwise we couldn't make anything else. So just jumping into that, like trying to code on like day one, after we haven't done that many tutorials, was pretty intimidating. And so we, after just failing completely on like the first day, we had to just like take a step back and then just be like, okay, let's just try and learn it more and just get it in our heads before we try and like code this. Really. Yeah.
Yeah, when you learn Python, there's actually a minimum of 2 different versions of Python. There's also the fact that you have to then start a virtual environment to run your Python in, and there's different kinds of virtual environments as well. So we had a lot of issues with that. But once we managed to get some work in that was working, then we stuck with that. It was okay after that.
Cool. Next question. Come on. Over here. Felicia, have I got that right? Yes. Someone's name I do know.
Hi guys, it's really cool. What advice would you give for people coming up behind you coming into project?
Well, if you're scared, then you should be, because it's very scary. Yeah.
All I would suggest is start your best practices for GitHub straight away. We sort of forced ourselves to do it, even though it slowed us down a bit in the beginning, but it paid off massively in the second week because we were all really comfortable with GitHub and we were just merging branches and working on separate components, and we were just completely used to it. So that's the biggest piece of advice I'd give.
And I might be the crazy of the Kanban board, but please, I really think it saves time to make draws of what you think, because not everyone is in the same page. You might think everyone knows what you mean, and it's not the case. So communication, drawing down, that's the main key to start with.
Okay. I know it's really hot in here, but last chance for questions online or in the room. Up here, hi.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how did you find the flow of the project, like from beginning to start? Is it like the speed or anything? So
The flow.
yeah, the flow, like the speed of how quick you were
Well,
going. or
at the
anything.
beginning it seems like really slow because you don't know how to start, as Kyle mentioned. But after that, everything is so quick. At least from my perspective, I don't know if someone else wants to.
Yeah, you really, the first week or so, you make next to no progress. Or it feels like you're making next to no progress, but you're learning a lot of things. And then in the second week, you can put them all into practice. So it really picks up after that. And I wouldn't say we finished early, but we definitely finished on time.
Okay, fantastic. Let's have one final round of applause for Team Alpha. Come on. So that concludes the most recent graduation. I mean, if we're going to list them, there's 3 new languages learnt across the 3 teams, new databases, hardware, 3D printing, probably about 8 new frameworks. If that doesn't describe what is capable after doing this course for 12 weeks, then I don't know what will. Have a brilliant evening. We will see you again in 3 weeks' time. Thank you very much.